We've written the skeleton of our simple unit test for our membership application. Now let's get in there and make these tests pass. First thing I want to do is I want to have a variable that represents the state of the thing under test, and I want to have that created in a before block. The before block in our test here in Mocha goes off before everything else does in this block. So this is going to arrange the object that I'm going to test. I don't want to have to keep firing all the logic down below. I'd rather have one variable here represent the result of our scenario. If you find yourself changing that variable or working with a new one down below, consider creating a brand new block for it, because that usually means you have a whole different scenario. All right, well, here we go. We have a valid application that we're setting up here in our before block. We have initialized the variable above so we can test it down below. So this is how you do this in Mocha. You just use a callback, and that callback should contain some kind of assertion. Mocha is going to look at this and see if it passes, and if it does, it'll give it a nice green check mark. Speaking of, let's see if we can get one of those green check marks. Here, I'll just assert that our app is valid, and if it's not, then I'm going to give the assertion library here a message. It's that easy. Assert or assert.ok, those are synonymous. Before I run this, I want you to take a look at the way the code is laid out here. It's very simple. It's easy to read. I don't have a lot of blocks. I have a number of assertions down below. Your eyes can easily scan this page. This is important. When you start building out your spec files, things are going to get complex. You're going to have a lot of tests to wade through. What you really want is the simplest possible thing that you can do. This is why I don't like to take a lot of dependencies on other libraries. I don't want to have a lot of strange syntax. Here, I'm keeping this bleedingly simple. Of course, that's going to change. But that is going to be the goal, because what I'm going to drive for here is clarity. I want my tests to look the same, pretty much, on the code page here as they do when I run them. And speaking of, let's do that now. I'll flip over to the console and run Mocha. And first, yay! Second, read this from top to bottom. Applying for admission using valid email, first, last, height, age, weight is valid. It kind of reads okay, but the idea here is I'm going for as much clarity as I can, so I'm going to be doing this back and forth where I read things to myself, go back to the code and tweak it. I'm going to change a lot of the wording here to be as clear as I possibly can. So for now, let's focus back on our validations. I'm going to pop out an assertion here for email and for height and weight and name. And I'll go and I'll just fill these in. Height is valid, age is valid, weight is valid, and name is valid. Now, if any one of these things failed at some point in the future, well, then we'd know our isValid function failed for a particular reason. Oh boy. And I run into a problem. And it looks like our final test here, valid name, looks like it doesn't exist. So heading back over to the code, sure enough, it doesn't. I had thought that I put that in there and I didn't. Oh boy. Well, that's okay. It's only going to take just a second. I want to be sure that our first and our last names exist for the application. So let's go back and we can try this again. And rerunning it, Mocha, boom. All green check marks. That's exciting. Functionally, I'm happy about this. However, not terribly happy about the way this reads. Let's read it together. Applying for admission using valid email, first, last, age, height, and weight is valid. Reports a valid email. There's a lot of repetition. Reports A, reports valid. What does that even mean? I could dig this thing to pieces. I think I'm going to rethink this a bit. Let's go back in here. Applying for admission, let's just say membership application requirements, because that's what we're dealing with. And here we're dealing with validations. And here, let's be specific. Application is valid if all the validators return true. Much clearer. Let's go on down the list here and see if we can tweak this to reflect exactly what our tests are doing and what it is we are asserting. Much better. Two things I really like about this. The first, it reads well. It reads as if you're reading top to bottom or sort of like a checklist. The second thing I like about it is each assertion is one line. It's easy to read, and that makes me feel as if I'm not trying to do too much. All right, well, going over this again, there's still some tweaks we can do here. A little redundancy. All validators successful. I think that makes a little bit better sense. Let's tweak this here. I want this to be very specific. So let's have it say application valid if. All validators successful. That makes good sense. Okay, now let's run this. I like it. Application requirements. It's valid if all validators successful. Emails 4 more characters and contains an @ sigil. Okay. You might think I'm being a little bit nutty about this, but remember, you're going to be reading this an awful lot. It should make sense to you. If it doesn't, then you might be doing the wrong thing. Now we can output this, if we want, in HTML format. All you have to do is pass in -- reporter doc to Mocha, and then it'll output HTML as you see here. I can output this into a file. And if I want to be a complete nerd, I can take that file, print it out, and take it to the meeting. Here it is. I can show my boss, look it, this is how everything is going. Oh, geez, I did that once and I got laughed out of the meeting. I did, really. I'm not kidding. I took my little checklist here, I printed it out, took it into a meeting and said, look at what I've been doing. And they laughed at me and they said, whatever, Rob. So I suppose I have to pass that along to you. It might sound like fun, but you don't want to print this out and take it to a meeting. You will get laughed at.